Hello there, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. It's Kerry here again at the Christchurch Review of Books. Today a review of a book that was long anticipated by fans and is finally here. That book is The Secret Hours by Mick Herron. Now, if you're watching this video, you're probably already familiar with Mick Herron's work. He's become quite a star in the thriller, espionage, fiction scene over the last few years, much because of his Slow Horses, aka Slayer House, aka Jackson Lamb thriller series. He originally put those books out over a decade ago, well, the first one, and it didn't sell all that well. And it took a change of a publisher or two before they recognised what they had on their hands and decided to promote it. And now they've become bestsellers. And to amp things up even further, Apple started making a television adaptation of the first few books, and more of that is in store. So Mick Herron is pretty hot right now in the spy fiction area, and we were all wondering whether he was going to put out a new Slayer House book this year, and the answer was no. Instead, the PR people said that a new standalone book was coming out called The Secret Hours, but Slayer House fans might enjoy it. Skip forward to a couple of weeks ago and The Secret Hours has arrived, and I don't think it's any great spoiler to tell you that this book is very, very intimately connected to the Slayer House books. If you're a fan of those, you will want to read this. This is essential reading, basically. There's just so much in this book connected to the Slayer House universe, it's just not funny. So the basic story is, well, a man called Max Janashek, is awoken in the middle of the night in his cottage in a secluded part of Devon in the UK. Intruders are breaking into his house. He hits one of them over the head with a fire poker, escapes, uses his knowledge of the local area to escape pursuers, and then goes to ground. And we don't know who his pursuers are. And the bigger question is, who or what was Max in a former life? He seems to have skills, escaping evasion skills, and thinks about having a go bag and all that type of thing ready to take him off to a new life if things go bad for him. So he's obviously under protection and hiding. So that's an open question so far. And then the story changes to the story basically of Griselda Fleet and Malcolm Kyle. Now these are two civil servants who are living quite rough personal lives, and a couple of years ago they were appointed to run a project known as Monochrome, which is an investigation into the misdeeds of the secret services, the MI6, or Regent's Park as it's known in these books. And they've been stonewalled at every turn by the actual security services, and they only seem to listen to testimony of various crazies and paranoids and people that complain on Twitter about being stalked by the secret services. So the inquiry's going nowhere. But then suddenly one day Malcolm Kyle, who is looking at a dead end after the Monochrome inquiry ends, he's got no real future and prospects. Somebody slips him a file, and there goes the mail. Slips him a file, and it turns out to be a genuine secret document about an operation in Berlin 30 years ago. And as the Monochrome inquiry is almost wound down, they start listening to the testimony of a witness who calls herself Alison Norse, who was involved in the operation 30 years ago. Now, Alison, so from then on we kind of switch from time period to time period between the current day stuff with the inquiry, with Max and the people that Max is trying to contact to find safety, and also we have a viewpoint from the first desk of the MI6 or Regent's Park, which is a character we know from the Slayer House books called Diana Taverner, and she's a take no prisoner type of woman, and she's trying to hold things together with the pressures of cynical and hostile politicians and their advisors trying to degrade the security services and privatize its functions and what have you, and she's fighting it seems to be a losing battle. And this all becomes entwined with the inquiry and the events of in Berlin 30 odd years ago. So Alison North goes on the stand, starts telling us her stories, and it seems that she was picked out as a fresh-faced new agent to go on a mission to Berlin to ostensibly investigate their finances and their spending and their expense account, whatever, but she had a real purpose, a secret purpose to keep an eye on certain characters there, which there goes the mail again, certain characters there that were undertaking projects and missions which the people back home didn't entirely approve of. And along the way, she encounters people like the grandfather of a certain Slow Horses character, other people that we know of from the Slow Horses book, some that we haven't met in those books but were kind of legendary. Charles Partner, I believe, and I think David Wainwright, who's known as the Old Bastard in the Slow Horses books. She comes into contact with him, and she travels to Berlin, the station house there in Berlin, still, even though the wall has come down and communism supposedly has lost. Berlin's still known as the Spooks Zoo, and there's a wide variety of wild characters inhabiting the British station house there. Chief among them is one Brinsley Miles. She has to keep an eye on him, and it becomes clear if you have read the Slough House, Slow Horses, whatever you want to call them, books, it comes clear within a page or two, Brinsley Miles is a certain prominent character from the Slough House books. In fact, probably the most prominent character from the Slough House books, and this is him in an earlier incarnation, an earlier part of his personal evolution, still fighting his battles against the East and West in Berlin. And she kind of takes up a social connection with Brinsley, and together they get together with a local fixer name, codenamed or they call Otis, and they hit the social scene, the clubs and the bars, and it becomes clear to Alison that they've got Brinsley and Otis have a common cause, and it is to avenge the death of someone which they were closely connected with, who was murdered at the hands of a former Stasi agent in Germany. And the outcome of this little mission of theirs is probably too much of a spoiler to tell you, but it does have direct connotations with some of the characters and the events in the Slow Horses, Slough House books. It's a bit of a surprise, and this book is promoted as a standalone, but I'm not sure how well it will read as a standalone to anyone not familiar with the Slough House books. It's an adequate thriller that way, but if you know the stories and all the way up to Last Christmas's Standing at the Wall, there are direct connections to the Slow Horses books, Slough House, Slow Horses, Jackson Lamb, what do you want to call them. In fact, it comes to a point that just about every page there's a sly little reference, an Easter egg, a comical statement which you know the answer to if you've read the other books. It's just so densely packed in here. It will delight fans of the Slough House books. You'll want to read them if you this book if you are one of those fans. It could stand alone, but there's just so much connective tissue to the other series that it just makes much more sense if you know those other books. As for the writing, Herron is at top-notch form on this one. I mean, if you know his book, you already know he has a unique way of describing people, situations, locations in a kind of surprising but very apt way. He makes lots of wry comments on modern life and our habits these days, and technology and culture, and of course the politics, the cynical politicians and their advisors. Certain advisors, certain Mr. Sparrow, who came to prominence in the Slough House books, has a role in this, as do other politicians. Diana Taverner, of course, just when you think she's being cynical and is going to take the easy way out at the end, there is quite a surprise ending, which, of course, well, it certainly surprised me how direct the action she took was. I won't try and spoil anymore, but it is a good ending. And yeah, so like I was saying, if you're a Slayer House fan, you'll want this. There's no doubt about this. It kind of expands the world, the universe, what you could call, of the Slayer House Slow Horses books, backwards through time. So you see how these people became how they are now. Expands the universe out, that there's other people living in this universe, interaction with the characters that we know and the power structures that we've come to know from the other books. Griselda Fleet and Malcolm Kyle, they get little viewpoint character segments, and they're living and breathing people. They're not successes in life by any means. They have problems, and they can't see much of your future for themselves, but they're like pawns caught up in this thing, the monochrome inquiry, and yeah, so it's all good. I don't know if I can say too much more about this book. Then it is great if you know the Slayer House Slow Horses, Jackson Lamb. I'm getting sick of saying that every time. His full stories set in the Slayer House universe. You'll want this. It is essential if you're a fan of those. Maybe if you're up to date with those, it was probably better. Some things will not resonate with you unless you've read to the more recent books in this series, including Last Christmas's Standing by the Wall, their short fiction that he put out. There's a direct reference connection to that in this book. Yeah, so that's it. As you can tell, I really enjoyed this book. It was a delight to read. If you're a fan of Slayer House books, it will delight you. I think I've said enough. There is a different cover for this in the USA, so I'll put that here. So it is out there now, waiting for you. Okay, we'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care and have a good day.